welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Superpowers. This is Caron, I'm Dawn, and today we are going to be talking about psychometry. And I think you're going to enjoy this video because I learned a lot. I didn't realize I used it. I actually considered myself someone who does not know how to do psychometry, but it turns out I do a lot of psychometry.
Yeah, and Dawn kept saying that to me. I'm not good at psychometry, and I'm thinking, but you do it all the time. But anyway, let's
talk about what psychometry is. And I'm going to read the definition because if I had read the definition, instead of just assuming I knew what it was, then I probably would have known. So, psychometry is also known as token object reading. Mm-hmm. And it's a form of extrasensory perception characterized by the claimed ability to make relevant associations from an object of unknown history by making physical contact with that object. Mm. So physical contact with that object, right? Mm-hmm. I don't. So mm-hmm. I think that was what I was picturing, was it mm-hmm. had to do with touching. So what this is pretty much saying is being able to pick up on the energetic imprint of an object and maybe being able to tell you about the object, or that object being able to tell you about the person's energy that might be attached to it.
Yeah, for example, if someone wears a necklace a lot, you should be able to hold that necklace in your hands and be able to understand who wore that necklace, and also, you know, a lot about them and a lot about maybe the emotions that they were feeling and that sort of thing. I'm very good at that.
But when we've done psychic work and different types of practices, mm-hmm. I have always struggled with, when I'm holding a piece, to be, say it's a set of keys, to know who that key mm-hmm. belongs to or tell you anything about it. However, I use it with my psychic investigation.
Mm-hmm. That happens every time you go into
absolutely,
a space to
yeah.
do
There's a lot of pieces that hold a lot of imprints, and they all tell stories. But another way, and then so a lot of times we'll clear it. So for instance, if you're going antique shopping, sometimes there's things attached to it. You bring it home, it doesn't vibe well with, or doesn't jive with your vibe. So a lot of times we will clear the energy out of that object. But another way that people use psychometry is for mediumship and mm-hmm. for forensic mediumship. And we talked to our friend Opie, mm-hmm. aka Cheryl Kreft, about how she uses psychometry in her practice when it comes mm-hmm. to mediumship, and how it takes her readings to the next level.
Yeah. And so we'll play that video now.
Now, you were talking earlier about the forensics that's coming down the mm-hmm. pipeline. So you've been doing quite a bit of forensic mediumship, right?
Yes, I've had about, I think, 12 cases now of, people looking for either closure on things that didn't settle right with the cases or missing persons. So I've had a wide variety of experiences with that, but it's been a really beautiful thing that people would trust me in that kind of position, because the responsibility of that is something that I take really serious. So it's quite unique each time that they come. So I've had a lot of different experiences with that.
How did you get into it? Like, was it spirit that came and told you, or did someone reach out to you and ask for your help?
So it was always communicated as soon as I opened up that I meant to do forensic cases in kind of a more specialized field down the road. But until then, they kind of had to start building me. And one day I picked up the phone, and friends that had experienced reads from me, the husband and wife separately, were both really taken back on how I could connect to them. Their friend's child had gone missing and they needed assistance immediately. And that was my first case here in Saskatchewan. So I went on site and started working with the family as soon as I found out. And that taught me a lot about psychometry, energy imprints in the environment, historical imprints in the environment, and fresh. Like there were so many different elements, and I'm still learning because you experience something, you still have to kind of figure out what they're showing you, what is being explained. So yeah, it's kind of neat.
Mhm. So you said psychometry. Is that how you got into using psychometry, or have you used it before? Like,
well, I started kind of playing around when people would bring items when I started testing my psychic and mediumship skills. When I started my work, I only saw myself doing mediumship, and then people started coming to me for psychic work. But I found when they brought an item and I held it, it was what I call like a Wi-Fi enhancer. It was just like, boom, the spirit was right there, and there was just a lot less bringing them in and trying to enhance the energy kind of process. It was just, I could describe them. They were there, they were talking with me, they were giving me information, and it was a lot stronger of a communication. A lot of times when people bring me pictures, I ask for them to be face down so I can describe it, and at the end I'll flip it, and there's a connection there. So
wow.
yeah, it's lots of different pieces can be used in different ways. For animal work like Caron does, I love when people bring collars.
Yeah.
Because the animal has that close to them all the time. So the energy is strong and stays in that little metal tag beautifully.
It's like a person wearing a necklace, right? It's very connected to their energy.
Yeah, and it's just like the vibration stays in the item. I find different types of items hold the vibration longer and better. The dense metals, gemstones, they really hold on to the energy imprint really well. Things like clothing, it gets washed off more. I haven't experienced such good energy imprints as much with clothing. Hair is very unique to somebody, so that's something that can kind of be stronger. Jewelry, I find one time I had a woman bring a ring in, but her grandmother, mother, and her had worn it, so I got all these conflicting imprints connected to all of them. Whereas if somebody brings, a watch that grandpa solely wore all the time, that energy is strong.
So what does it feel like when you put it in your hand? Like, do you hear, do you see, do you feel?
I predominantly am claircognizant. So it's just a clear channel. I don't remember things after. They just step in and bring it. But then I get all these different sensations that kind of utilize and enhance the information. So I get a lot of touching, a lot of physical sensations. They communicate in different ways with me. I get sense, taste, and I'll see pictures, and words will come into my ear externally or internally, but claircognizant is the predominant one for me. It's definitely the strongest on me. It just comes through. There's no processing.
So you find that just by holding and touching these pieces, the claircognizant just is amplified.
It's just like a door opens, and it's just everything that I'm experiencing in these different senses is just coming right on through. So it's like I take a moment and connect to the energy, and it just starts merging with me kind of, and we just fluently externally vocalize everything that's coming up, the senses, tastes, visuals, because usually other people can explain that, whereas I'm just receiving it.
Let's go back a little bit and explain what psychometry is. So what is it? What is it that's happening, do you think?
So we are tuning in to the vibrational imprint of the energy in the item. When we have a lot of emotion with something, we energetically imprint it with that vibration. So for example, somebody could write a very emotional letter. You could hold that letter, and the energy is put into that expression on paper. So that's where we tune in and start to connect and read that energy in the item. So if you go to an environment, well, actually, let's think about this. Let's say we're going over to somebody's house for supper, okay? The couple, before we walk in, has just had a massive all-out fight. Okay. All of a sudden you go in, you walk in, and you can feel that energy hit right away. You don't even have to say anything. You don't even have to look at them. You're like, what am I walking into? Right? That's just kind of like a day-to-day kind of situation that the energy imprint is something that we connect to and read and interpret and gather that information before we even know what's happening.
That's right. Yeah. And that's a big part of it. And I don't know if people think of it that often that way, but it's our instincts, which is to observe, collect information, and then interpret, right?
That's our job as a psychic medium, right? And the thing about psychometry is the subtle pickups. They're flashes, they're quick, but we have to calm down and be in a position to pick up the subtle pieces of it.
Now, did you have to practice psychometry, or did it just, you picked it up and you're like, oh, look at this, it's amplified everything?
Yeah, it's kind of enhanced as my work goes. But I think it's because I have more recognition around it and I work with it more. So it kind of, the more you work with it, the more it grows and expands and develops. I haven't really challenged myself to really explore how strong it is with me, but I know it's an incredible tool, especially for me, for mediumship, because a lot of people don't know this, but mediumship is not my strong suit. Yeah.
Oh, did not know that.
Right. I don't consider it to be strong. I really have to work and progress at it and do diligent practice with it constantly and challenge myself in different ways to kind of always utilize those tools. So psychometry for me really helps connecting to a spirit of a loved one.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a whole different experience. When somebody brings something there, it is like boom, 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 boom. And if somebody's kind of half invested in it and there's no items, it's a lot more of a picking process going through.
Very interesting. Wow.
Wild, hey? Because a lot of people think I'm really strong with my mediumship, and I actually don't consider myself to be strong with my mediumship. I get a lot more information in other avenues and ways.
Really? Wow. So interesting. But yet you feel called to mediumship, so you're going to continue to practice.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely something that's going to be in my forensic work for sure. And that's where Spirit says I'm really going to be kind of diving my full-time energy into is the forensic work. So all these pieces are essential in the long-term path.
We've talked about how you, Cheryl, use psychometry in your work, which is a benefit of psychometry. But now I want to touch on the fact that if objects hold energy, and I'm thinking of something like an antique, right? Yeah. And then we bring the energy that is stored in that object home with us, and now it's in our home. So let's talk about maybe the negative side of that.
Well, I tell you, Caron, the antiquers that I know have so many energies in their home, they have no idea how active it is there. If people knew the simplicity of clearing an item before coming home, the power of that, it's like buying a new car. Sometimes it's everything, but you touch it, you're like, something feels off. It's the previous owner's energy. Right? So if we can clear that so that we can kind of bring our energy into it, it's way better in the long run. I always suggest people put it in the outside for 24 hours, saging it, holy water, cleansing it, getting assistance from other healers with it, whatever we can do to kind of make sure that it's in a good position before we bring it into our space.
And most things can be cleared. But from my understanding, there's the odd thing that just doesn't clear, right? Yeah. And then at that point, you want to remove that object.
Yeah.
which can be tough when it's something that, the person might really like. I remember Marianne and I did an episode of
the chair.
The chair, yes, in Allura. Like we tried really hard to clear that beautiful green velvet chair. And we just couldn't. So we had to have, she had to get rid of it. And it was a really pretty piece. Yeah.
Well, and sometimes it's just the connection, the vibrational connection, and something will not release with it because it's just merged.
Yeah, and it was.
There's always a vibrational connection when something's connecting to us in some manner or form, right? So it's kind of a tricky process of figuring that out as well.
Now, on the flip side, the other thing I'm thinking of in terms of psychometry is that I have a colleague that does animal rescue, but what she does is she makes blankets for newly rescued dogs, but she posts them online to get everyone to send their love and energy into it. And so that's a type of psychometry too. We just talked about how things can have some negative energy attached to them, but then there are things that can have some really beautiful, loving energy attached to them.
I love that. I actually do that as a cleansing tool with my water. So I'll get clear glass, and I love my mason jars, and I'll just flood it with prayer, love, and light every day before I drink it, so that I kind of get that support inside out and that extra expansion.
Yeah, but I think even things in your home that is, maybe a piece of art that was created by someone you love, and they, thought of you when they created that piece of art, or, you can have things that just, ooze of that loving energy. And it's important to put those things around the house too, right?
So
love is so powerful. It's so powerful. It can really shift a lot of things when you start flooding that energy. It's incredible. Think about if you just brought that power and energy of love into every aspect of your day, no matter how challenging it is. It's like everything just sheds off of you.
Yeah. So would all of this be considered psychometry? Because I guess I'm just having this revelation myself. I honestly thought that psychometry is when you hold an object and you get a reading, which I don't receive information that way, but yet I clear objects all the time when I do psychic investigation. So it's more about the fact that an object holds the energy. It's not necessarily that we need to touch it.
Yeah, I think it's just the energy connected to it, the imprint of it, the environment. It could be items, it could be people, it could be, like a lot of people like to limit it to an item, but I mean, it's the energy. It's always the energy and the reading and connection of it. So,
right. So it could be in an object, and it could be in, it could be positive energy or negative energy. And then it could be also in food then, right? Because that would be an item, wouldn't it? Or an object?
We did an episode not too long ago on an enchantment. An enchantment is how you put energy into an object. Psychometry is just picking up the energy of an object, right?
Oh my
Getting
goodness.
into that, right?
Yeah, just reading it.
Yeah. My first introduction to psychometry was in an 80s movie called Vibes, with Jeff Goldblum being a guy who does psychometry. And if anyone wants to see a really cool 80s movie, definitely do that, because it's got Cyndi Lauper and Columbo, or the guy who plays Columbo. Really good movie. Yeah. Really, really, really cool psychic movie, but he held everything. So I guess that's just how I interpreted it. I didn't really think about using the fact that I use other senses, not just touch, to pick up on the energy. Wow. Revelation.
Well, you probably use it all the time, but it's just something that's kind of incorporated and fluent for you. It's not something that you're actually separating and acknowledging to read from, right? So
right, because I can pick up imprints and stories, and I can clear objects. I mean, that's part of what I do with the psychic. I just didn't realize it was psychometry. Like, if people wanted to reach out to you, what services are you offering?
Just the psychic mediumship reads. I still kind of support people in that. Mentoring, I've kind of started expanding on as well, helping people connect to their abilities, which has been super beautiful experience. And yeah, I'm just here to be utilized as a tool for anybody who's looking for guidance or assistance or clarity.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you again for spending this time with us and talking about psychometry. And
thank you so much for this opportunity,
Cheryl.
You guys. I appreciate you.
So as you can see, I had a revelation. I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned a lot.
Remember, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss another episode. And like this video if you liked it.
So we hope you enjoyed the topic. We have other ones coming this way, and we can all learn together all these neat little divination tools and all about the metaphysical. All right, take care.